The morning sun stretched long golden fingers across Maplewood Drive, casting soft light on rows of neatly trimmed lawns and white picket fences. It was the kind of neighborhood you see on postcards, suburban perfection, where every house looked like it had been stamped out of the same glossy magazine page. My house, sitting at the end of the cul-de-sac, had been my dream for years. 2 stories, red brick, a wraparound porch, the kind of home that whispers forever. I bought it with sweat and sacrifice, after years of working overtime shifts at the plant and eating ramen to save for a down payment. Every nail, every brick felt like mine, which is why, when the HOA sent me that letter, I almost tore it to shreds on the spot. It came in a crisp white envelope with the Maplewood Estates HOA logo embossed in green. Inside was a single sheet of paper with neat, bold letters that made my stomach turn. Notice of violation, unapproved fence installation. Immediate action required. I read it 3 times before the words sank in. Apparently, my brand new cedar fence, the one I'd spent 3 weekends building with my own hands, wasn't in compliance with HOA aesthetic guidelines. They wanted it gone, completely removed. I slammed the letter on the kitchen counter and stared out the window at my handiwork. That fence wasn't just wood and nails. It was privacy, security. It was the first thing I'd done for myself in years that felt right. I had plans for that backyard, a garden, maybe even a fire pit. And now these pencil pushers and polo shirts were telling me it had to come down? Not a chance. That night, I called the HOA office. A chipper voice answered on the second ring. Maplewood Estates Homeowners Association. This is Donna speaking. How can I help you? Yeah, Donna. This is Mark Reynolds, Lot 23. I got a violation notice about my fence, and I think there's been a mistake. Oh, she said, her tone dripping with fake sympathy. Yes, I see that here. Your fence wasn't approved before installation, and unfortunately, it doesn't meet our color and height requirements. It's a fence, I snapped. Not a skyscraper. And it's on my property. Well, technically, all exterior modifications require prior approval. You should have submitted a request form. I gripped the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. So what happens now? If the fence isn't removed within 14 days, she said sweetly, you'll be subject to a $200 daily fine. I hung up without saying goodbye. My blood boiled as I paced the kitchen, the letter crumpled in my fist. $200 a day? For a fence? It felt less like a rule and more like a shakedown. The next day, I drove around the neighborhood, and that's when I saw it. Half the houses had fences. Different styles, different heights, even a few painted colors I didn't think were HOA approved either. Why me? Why now? That night, I knocked on my neighbor Tom's door. Tom was a retired firefighter with a beer belly and a heart of gold. He opened the door wearing a faded Yankees cap and a grin. Mark, what brings you over? You ever get a letter about your fence? I asked, nodding toward his backyard. Tom chuckled. That old thing. Put it up 10 years ago. Never heard a peep from the HOA. Figures. Why? They coming after you? Yeah, they want mine gone. Tom shook his head. Typical. They pick someone new every year to make an example of. Keeps everybody scared. His words hit me like a gut punch. An example? They thought I'd roll over, pay their fines, and tear down something I worked my ass off to build. Not a damn chance. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, anger simmering in my chest. I could almost hear Donna's chipper voice echoing in my head. Unfortunately, it doesn't meet our guidelines. Screw their guidelines. That's when the idea hit me, not just to keep the fence, but to turn it into something they could never ignore. Something so outrageous, so undeniably bold, that the whole neighborhood would talk about it for years. If they wanted to play games, fine. But I wasn't playing to lose. I grabbed my laptop and started sketching ideas. Colors, patterns, lights, maybe even art. I wasn't just going to have a fence. I was going to have the fence. The one people drove across town just to see. As I worked, a smile crept across my face. Let the HOA send their letters. Let them threaten their fines. By the time I was done, they'd wish they never messed with me. This wasn't just about a fence anymore. This was war, and I was going to make it legendary. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm, the weight of my plan buzzing in my veins like electricity. Sunlight spilled across my desk, where sketches of wild designs littered the surface. Some were outrageous, like a mural of an eagle clutching the American flag. Others were downright rebellious, bright neon stripes that would make the fence look like a carnival ride. But one thing was clear. This was no longer just a fence. It was a statement. I started with research. If the HOA wanted to play the rulebook game, I was going to learn every damn rule in that book. I printed out the entire Maplewood Estates HOA covenant, 57 pages of mind-numbing legal jargon, and highlighted every clause about exterior modifications. They were strict, sure, but there were loopholes. And where there weren't, I'd make them. Turns out, the rules didn't say anything about art. No guidelines for murals. No mention of decorations as long as they didn't extend past the property line. That was my in. By Saturday, I was at the hardware store loading up on primer, outdoor paint, weatherproof lights, and enough brushes to open a small art studio. The cashier, a kid who looked like he still had a fake ID, scanned the mountain of supplies and raised an eyebrow. Big project. You have no idea, I said with a grin. That afternoon, I started sanding down the cedar panels, prepping them like a blank canvas. Every stroke of sandpaper felt like sharpening a sword. This wasn't just wood. This was a battlefield. As I worked, neighbors started to notice. Mrs. Carter, the sweet old lady across the street, walked over with her little poodle in tow. "Mark, honey," she said, peering over the fence. "What are you up to now?" "Just making a few improvements," I said with a wink. "Well, I think it looks lovely already. Don't let those HOA folks bully you." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "They've always been a little uptight." "You're telling me," I muttered. By Monday, the whispers had started. Cars slowed as they passed my house, their drivers craning their necks to see the bold streaks of color spreading across the fence like wildfire. I started with a deep navy base coat, then added sharp geometric patterns in crimson and gold. By midweek, I had floodlights installed along the bottom, casting dramatic shadows that made the colors pop after dark. And then came the piece de resistance, a mural on the back panel facing the street. A massive, roaring lion, mane flowing like fire, its eyes locked forward with fierce defiance. Below it, in bold letters that stretched across 3 panels, "This is freedom." It was everything the HOA hated: loud, proud, unapologetic. And it was legal. By Friday, my masterpiece was complete. I stood in the driveway at dusk, staring at the glowing lion as the floodlights kicked on, and felt something deep in my chest, a surge of triumph. The kind you only get when you know you've outsmarted someone who thought they had you beat. But my victory was short-lived. The next morning, there was a knock at the door. Hard, sharp, the kind of knock that says this isn't a friendly visit. I opened it to find 2 people on my porch: Donna, the chirpy HOA rep who now looked anything but chirpy, and a guy in a gray suit with a clipboard. Behind them, I spotted the HOA president himself, Carl Jensen. Tall, thin, with that permanent smug expression that makes you want to punch something. "Mr. Reynolds," Donna said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We need to talk about your project." "My fence?" I asked innocently. "Yes," Carl cut in, his voice sharp as broken glass. "It's in direct violation of the HOA's guidelines on neighborhood aesthetics." I folded my arms. "Show me where in the covenant it says I can't paint my fence." Carl's jaw tightened. "This isn't about paint. It's about harmony, consistency. It's about control," I snapped. "And guess what? You don't own my property." Donna glanced nervously at the guy with the clipboard, who cleared his throat. "Sir, failure to comply could result in escalating fines and potential legal action." I smiled. Not a friendly smile, a try-me smile. "Then you better call your lawyer, because this fence isn't going anywhere." They left with promises of letters and lawsuits, but I didn't flinch. That night, I installed an even bigger spotlight and aimed it right at the lion's face. Let the whole damn neighborhood see it. By the next week, I'd gone viral. Someone posted a picture of the fence on Instagram with the caption, "When your HOA picks the wrong guy." Within days, it had thousands of likes. Cars lined the street at night just to take pictures. Kids posed in front of the lion for selfies. But the HOA wasn't backing down. The letters came daily: formal warnings, threats of liens on my property, even a notice scheduling a mandatory compliance hearing. Tom stopped by one evening with a 6-pack and a worried look. "Mark, you're making headlines, man. People love what you did. But the HOA, they're not going to quit. They're talking lawsuits now." "Let them talk," I said, cracking open a beer. "They wanted a fight. They've got one." What I didn't tell him, what I barely admitted to myself, was that beneath the defiance, fear was starting to creep in. Legal fees. Court battles. Could they actually put a lien on my house? Could I lose everything over a fence? But every time I thought about backing down, I'd look out at that lion, bathed in golden light, and remember why I started this. It wasn't just about wood and paint anymore. It was about principle, about standing your ground when someone tries to push you around. And if the HOA wanted to take this to the next level, fine. I was ready. Or at least, I thought I was. Because the real storm was coming. And it was going to hit harder than I ever imagined. The letter came on a Tuesday morning, slipped under my door like a bad omen. Heavy cream paper, bold black ink. Mandatory compliance hearing. Maplewood Estates HOA Board. Date, Thursday, 6 p.m. Location, Community Clubhouse. I stared at it, my coffee cooling in my hand, the words sinking like stones in my gut. This wasn't another warning. This was their big move. Their power play. 2 nights later, I walked into that clubhouse like a soldier stepping onto enemy soil. The place smelled like lemon polish and self-righteousness. Rows of folding chairs faced a long table where the HOA board sat in all their smug glory. Carl Jensen was dead center, flanked by Donna and 3 others I didn't know but instantly disliked. Behind me, the chairs filled with neighbors, curious and whispering, their eyes flicking between me and the board like it was the main event. I wasn't alone, though. Tom sat in the second row, arms crossed, giving me a nod that said, "You've got this." Mrs. Carter was there too, her poodle tucked in a bag like emotional support artillery. Carl cleared his throat into the mic. "This meeting will come to order. We're here to address a serious violation by homeowner Mark Reynolds." I stood, heart pounding but voice steady. "My fence." Carl's eyes narrowed. "Your unauthorized and disruptive fence. You were instructed to remove it. You refused. You escalated the situation by painting it with this spectacle." He held up a color photo of my lion mural, the words, "This is freedom," glowing under the floodlights like a declaration of war. A ripple of murmurs ran through the room. Some neighbors smirked. Others frowned. "Mr. Reynolds," Carl continued, "your actions undermine the harmony and aesthetic integrity of Maplewood Estates. You've left us no choice but to impose maximum fines and initiate legal action if you do not comply immediately." I stepped closer to the table, planting my hands on the edge. "Show me the rule I broke. Show me." Carl's smug smile faltered. Donna flipped through a binder like her life depended on it. "Exterior modifications must be approved." "Painting isn't a modification. It's maintenance," I shot back. "Your own bylaws don't say a damn thing about color. And art? Not a word." Carl's face flushed. "This isn't about loopholes. It's about community standards." I laughed, loud enough to make a few people jump. "Community standards? Half the houses on this street have fences that don't match the guidelines. You didn't come after them. You came after me. Why? Because I didn't kiss the ring? Because I didn't bow down to your little fiefdom?" Gasps echoed. Carl slammed his palm on the table. "You're out of line." "No," I said, voice rising, every ounce of anger boiling over. "You're out of line. You think you can bully people with threats and fines, make us scared so we do whatever you say. Well, I'm not scared. You hear me? I'm not scared." The room erupted, people talking, shouting, phones recording. Donna hissed something to Carl, but he was too red-faced to hear. And then, from the back, a voice cut through the noise like a blade. "He's right." Every head turned. It was Tom. He stood, his voice booming like a fire captain giving orders. "This is bullshit, Carl. You've been pulling this crap for years. Picking someone new every season to make an example of. Not anymore." "Tom, sit down," Carl barked. But Tom didn't sit. Neither did Mrs. Carter, or the young couple next to her. One by one, neighbors stood, voices rising in a wave. "He's not breaking any rules. Leave the man alone. That fence is awesome." I swear, it felt like a scene from a movie, the underdog standing tall while the crowd rallies behind him. For a second, I thought Carl might explode. Instead, he banged the gavel so hard it cracked. "This meeting is adjourned," he roared, storming out with his minions in tow. The clubhouse erupted in cheers. People clapped me on the back, shook my hand, even asked for selfies with the guy who took on the HOA. But I knew it wasn't over. The next morning, a thick envelope arrived by certified mail. Notice of intent to file suit. They were really doing it. Taking me to court. I sank onto the porch steps, the weight of it crushing me. This wasn't just fines anymore. This was lawyers, legal fees, thousands of dollars I didn't have. Tom found me there an hour later, staring at the envelope like it was a live grenade. "You okay, buddy?" "They're suing me," I said flatly. Tom whistled low. "Damn, you gonna fight it?" I looked at the lion, blazing in the afternoon sun, and for the first time, I felt doubt gnawing at me. Was this worth losing everything over? And then my phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. I opened it and nearly dropped the damn thing. The post of my fence. It had blown up. Not thousands of likes. Millions. News outlets were sharing it. People were tagging me with comments like "legend" and "HOA tyrants exposed." Someone even started a GoFundMe titled "Save the Lion Fence." By the time I refreshed, donations were pouring in. 10 grand in an hour. Then 20. Then 50. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding with something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. The HOA thought they could break me, but they just turned me into a movement. And now, I had the money, the platform, the army. Carl Jensen had no idea what was coming. Because this war, it was about to go nuclear. By the next week, my life didn't feel real anymore. The story had exploded like a fireworks show on the 4th of July. Local news ran a segment calling me the Lion Fence Guy. Then national outlets picked it up. I even got an email from a late-night talk show producer asking if I'd do an interview. My GoFundMe. It didn't just cover legal fees. It hit 6 figures in 3 days. People from all over the country were donating, leaving messages like, "HOA tyranny ends here," and "paint the whole damn house next." But the HOA wasn't backing down. Carl Jensen doubled down on the lawsuit. His smug face even made the local paper, claiming he was protecting community standards. Standards, my ass. This was about ego now. The court date loomed like a storm cloud. My attorney. Yes, I had an attorney now, paid for by my internet army, told me not to worry. "You've got public opinion on your side," she said. Judges noticed that. Still, when the day came, walking into that courthouse felt like stepping into a gladiator arena. Carl was there in a tailored suit, his lips curled in that same arrogant smirk. Donna hovered behind him like a nervous shadow. The judge, an older guy with silver hair and eyes that had seen it all, listened to both sides. The HOA argued I violated community aesthetic harmony. My lawyer countered with the covenant, and the fact that nothing I did broke a single written rule. And then came the moment that changed everything. The judge leaned forward, peering at Carl over his glasses. "So, Mr. Jensen, you admit other homes in this neighborhood have unapproved fences?" Carl hesitated. "Well, yes, but you only enforced this rule against Mr. Reynolds?" Carl's face flushed crimson. He made it public. It was disruptive. The judge's gavel hit the block like a gunshot. Case dismissed. The HOA has no grounds for enforcement. "Mr. Reynolds, you're free to keep your fence." The room erupted in cheers. Reporters swarmed. Carl stormed out, looking like he'd swallowed a lemon. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because the day after the verdict, something unexpected happened. A camera crew showed up in my driveway. Then another. And another. Turns out, my story wasn't just viral, it was global. People loved the idea of one guy standing up to the HOA machine. And then the calls came. Book publishers, merch companies, a documentary producer, even a streaming service sniffing around for a movie deal. Suddenly, I wasn't just a guy with a fence. I was a symbol, a brand. The lion fence became a tourist attraction. People drove hours just to snap photos. Food trucks started parking nearby on weekends. I had neighbors selling Maplewood Freedom t-shirts out of their garages. And the HOA? Let's just say things got complicated. See, Carl thought he could wait me out. That once the noise died down, he'd get back to business as usual. But the noise didn't die. It grew. Other homeowners started asking questions. Why were they paying dues to an organization that spent thousands trying to crush a guy over a fence? Why were rules enforced selectively? Within 3 months, there was a special vote. Guess who got kicked off the board? Carl. Donna resigned a week later. The whole HOA crumbled like a stale cookie. And me? I didn't just keep my fence. I made it bigger, bolder. I hired a local artist to add more murals, an eagle soaring, fireworks exploding, the words "We the People" wrapping around the panels in brilliant red and blue. At night, the lights danced in patterns, synced to music you could hear from 3 blocks away. It wasn't just a fence anymore. It was a monument. A middle finger to every petty tyrant who thought they could control someone's dream with a stack of rules and a fake smile. One evening, as I stood in the driveway watching families take photos in front of the lion, Tom walked over with 2 beers. He handed me one and clinked his bottle against mine. "You did it, buddy," he said, grinning. "You made it legendary." I smiled, taking a long pull from the bottle, the lights from the fence painting the night in gold and crimson. "Hell," I said with a laugh, "we're just getting started." Because in that moment, I realized something bigger than fences, bigger than HOAs. When you stand your ground, when you refuse to bow, you don't just win a fight, you start a movement. In Maplewood, it would never be the same. If you enjoyed this intense story, smash that like button and subscribe for more gripping, cinematic tales. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss the next thriller. Your support keeps these stories coming.